the first person who translated these sutras into English. And that was Rice Davids. And there is a special dictionary made by Rice Davids, and everyone uses the words in that dictionary to translate the words of the Buddha. So I have an opinion that these translations or the words given by Rice Davids are not really the right words that you should use in English. Unfortunately, during the time when Rice Davids and other translators came to translate the sutras, the Buddhist monks who may have been teaching these Western people, they didn't know English. The Buddhist monks didn't know English. So how can they learn Pali from these Buddhist monks? You see, they had to use translators. Now that means the translators were people who knew English to some extent. I don't think they are even perfect in knowing English. To some extent they knew English. And they also knew the Sinhalese language of the monks. But they didn't really know Pali enough. The Pali is the language that the Buddha spoke. So, say for example, we take one word to explain this. The word Samadhi, which is commonly translated as concentration. Samadhi is translated as concentration. Now, if we take the real meaning of the word Samadhi, Sama means equal or equality. Sama. And the word, it's just a additional suffix or whatever you call it. The part means the state. The state, S-T-A-T-E, state. And so Samadhi should mean the state of being equal. That means state of equality. Equal. Now when you talk about equality, you are talking about two parties or two things which are equal. So here, what is the meaning of the word Samadhi? So the important thing is, supposing now there is the English person who knows English and the Sinhalese monk who knows only Sinhalese, and there is the translator who knows English and Sinhalese, but may not be knowing Pali properly. So he comes and asks the monk, what is the meaning of Samadhi? So the monk says, well, Samadhi is you focus your attention on one thing. You see, focus your attention on one thing. So the Englishman listens to that and says, concentration. Focus your attention on one thing is concentration. So that is how the word has been translated as concentration. But that doesn't convey the real meaning here. The important thing to understand, which that monk never explained, and Rice Davis never understood, and that is that we are talking about two forces that are pulling in two different directions. Today the modern psychologists are aware of this, and that is called cognitive dissonance. That means our mind works in two ways. When we talk about the mind, we are talking about the thinking mind, thinking part. With our mind we can think. We can say, if we say 1 plus 2 is 3, that is a thought, thinking mind. We can use the thinking mind to calculate mathematical problems, or we can use some to solve some problem, thinking. But there is another kind of mind. We get angry, or we begin to desire some pleasures, or we may be frightened, or we may be worried. That is what we call the emotional mind. Now, all these Buddhists who come to our temple here, when they come, they do a thing called observing the 5 precepts. They recite the 5 precepts. I will not harm life, I will not steal, I will not commit adultery, I will not speak lies or harsh speech or carry tales around. I will not drink alcoholic drinks or something. They come and say this. Do you know how many people really follow those rules? That's the point. Why is that? That is very important to understand. It is the thinking mind that recites the precepts, and they know that it is good. They don't think it is bad. But when they go home, their emotional mind begins to become very powerful and they break all the rules. The breaking of the precepts is done by the emotional mind. So in other words, our mind is pulled in two different directions. The emotional mind says, okay, that's okay, that is, we recited in the temple, but here, we are now here, is our problem here. And so, the mind, one part of the mind says no, the other part of the mind says yes. That is what is called cognitive dissonance. The mind is pulling in two different directions. So what we need to practice the precepts is what is called cognitive consonance. That means we need the mind to be in one direction, not two directions. That is the cognitive consonance. And that state of cognitive consonance is what we call Samadhi. You see, that could be called unification of the mind instead of a duality. That unification of the mind is the Samadhi, not just concentration. The word concentration doesn't indicate that. So this is why it is very important to understand the Pali words and not these English words. The English words can be misleading. And this is not the only word that has been wrongly translated. So many other words. And so, if we look at that problem, we begin to understand that we need a retranslation. Now, it is because I learnt English that I am able to find out this. If I didn't learn English properly, I would not know. I would also be using the same words that Rice Davids used. You see, so many people who talk about Buddhism use these English words in the wrong way, and the people who listen also understand something else, not what the Buddha said. So this is a big problem. And no one has been properly giving attention to this problem. And this is why I am now trying to get people to become interested in this problem and retranslate these things.